Okay, so boom. June 13, 2022. A quiet Monday afternoon in Round Lake Beach, Illinois. You'd expect birds chirping, dogs barking, and neighbors mowing their lawns. But inside one modest suburban home, there's nothing but silence. Heavy, unsettling silence. And that's when Deborah Karels walks into a scene that would break any mother. Now, let's back up for a sec. Deborah had just come to pick up her 3 kids. Bryant, 5, Cassidy, 3, and Gideon, just 2 years old. They'd spent the weekend with their father, Jason Karels, as part of a standard custody arrangement. You know, pretty normal divorce stuff. Dad gets the kids for the weekend, mom picks them up on Monday. Only this time, nobody answers the door. She knocks. Nothing. Calls his phone. No answer. So she does what any worried mother would do. She gets help, gets inside, and that's when the nightmare starts. The bodies of all 3 of her children are found dead. They'd been drowned, one by one. And their tiny lifeless forms were just lying there in the bedroom. Can we take a second? This isn't just a crime. This is the kind of horror that ruptures through the fabric of your soul. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, Jason's gone, vanished, but not before leaving a sick, twisted note behind. If I can't have them, neither can you. Let that sink in. Welcome to Mystery Unveiled, True Crime. Thank you, my viewers. A special thank you to our loyal subscribers for joining us as we uncover the darkest, most gripping true crime stories every single day. Your support fuels our mission to bring you both infamous cases and chilling untold mysteries. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. That's not just premeditated, that's targeted emotional warfare. That's not spur-of-the-moment rage or some blackout episode. That's, I'm going to take away everything you love, and I want you to suffer for it. Now we're talking motive. We're talking calculated evil. Cops are called, sirens blaze. It takes about half a millisecond for this quiet Illinois suburb to turn into the epicenter of one of the most gruesome family murders in recent history. Meanwhile, Jason Karels is somewhere out there on the run. What kind of father looks into his children's eyes and decides to end them? What pushes a man to go full Shakespearean tragedy with a bathtub? You know how in true crime, there's usually that one moment where everything flips from sad to WTF is happening? Yeah, this was that moment. And this story? It's just getting started. Alright, let's rewind the tape and ask the burning question. Who the hell is Jason Karels? And what turned this ordinary suburban dad into a headline-making monster? Because, spoiler alert, monsters don't just pop out of the bushes, they grow. Slowly. And the roots? They're usually tangled in dysfunction, resentment, and sometimes good old-fashioned narcissism. So, picture this. Jason Karels, 35 years old, unemployed, mostly glued to his video games like his Xbox was life support. He had that classic, I'm a man, child with unresolved trauma vibe going on. His wife Deborah had been holding down the fort for a while. She worked, she parented, she did the heavy lifting physically, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. Now, at first, like most couples, they probably had good times. Enough good times to create 3 beautiful kids. But over time, the cracks turned into chasms. Jason couldn't keep a job, couldn't stay emotionally stable, and Deborah, she was over it. She finally had the strength to separate. Not a divorce yet, just separation. The idea was to protect the kids, create a safe co-parenting situation. But Jason, he didn't see it that way. To him, it was a betrayal, rejection, and he took that personally. And here's where it gets even darker. According to Deborah, Jason would get weird. Not like he listens to true crime podcasts weird. I mean deeply unstable. There were red flags all over the place. He'd spiral into rants, obsess over her dating life, get controlling even with his limited visitation. But there was no court order saying he couldn't see the kids. So, in June 2022, she agrees to let him have the children for a weekend. Just a dad spending time with his kids, right? Wrong. Here's the twist of the knife. In the days leading up to the murders, Deborah said she didn't feel safe. She told friends and family something was off. Jason seemed detached, cold. Like he was going through the motions of being a father, but inside, the lights were off. He wasn't just a struggling dad. He was sinking, emotionally, mentally. And no one, not police, not child services, intervened in time. And this is where the story hits that all too familiar pattern in true crime. You know the one. He was struggling with mental illness defense. But let's be very clear, struggling doesn't explain execution. Because drowning 3 kids individually takes time. You don't just snap and commit that. You carry each child, put them in the water, hold them down, and watch their life disappear. You repeat. 3 times. That's not a breakdown. That's methodical. That's evil. It's like the devil handed him a plan, and he followed it to the letter. Ohan, did I mention? He didn't just do it in a rage and disappear. After the murders, Jason stuck around for a bit, sat in the house, probably looked at their bodies. He even left food out for the kids, like he was trying to stage some pathetic mockery of normalcy. This wasn't a man in crisis. This was a man making a statement. And here's the part that'll rip your heart out. Jason knew Deborah would come pick up the kids. He wanted her to walk into that house and find them. That was his final move. His final screw. You. So now the stage is set. We've got our villain. We've got our broken family. And we've got 3 innocent lives wiped out because one man couldn't handle being left. And just like that, Jason Karels went from being some guy on the couch to one of the most hated fathers in America. But he wasn't finished yet, because next, he ran. Okay, so Jason Karels has just done the unthinkable, drowned his 3 children, staged the house like a grotesque shrine to fatherhood, and left a note that basically screamed, "This was revenge." Now what does our family annihilator do next? He hops in his red Nissan Maxima and runs. Just takes off. Like he thought this was Grand Theft Auto, Patricide Edition. But here's the kicker, he doesn't even run far. It's not like he's bolting for the Canadian border or hiding in some off-grid shack. He just drives south. Why? Well, because Logic left the building about 3 bodies ago. So police put out an AP Bay. Every cop from Round Lake to Joliet is now looking for this guy. And then boom, around 12:30 p.m., Illinois state troopers spot him near Interstate 57. Cue the high-speed chase. And when I say high speed, I mean full-on, tire-screeching, adrenaline-pumping movie chase. Speeds were hitting nearly 100 miles per hour. Jason's swerving, weaving through traffic like he's trying to dodge accountability. And guess what? Just like in real life, you can't. And then, it happens. He crashes. Hard. Somewhere near Joliet. The car's busted up, airbags deployed, debris everywhere. But somehow, Jason, still breathing. And this right here is the moment, the climax of Act 1. Police yank him from the wreckage, cuff him, and as they're reading him his rights, he starts talking. According to authorities, Jason immediately confessed. Straight up told them he drowned the kids. No lawyer, no hesitation, no remorse. Just cold clinical admission, like he was ordering fast food. Yep, I killed them. All 3. Let that sink in. This wasn't a he broke down and sobbed moment. No tears. No pleas for mercy. He told the cops, plain and simple, what he did, and more importantly, why he did it. He didn't want Deborah to have the kids. This wasn't about insanity. This wasn't about voices in his head. This was about control. And the moment he lost that control, he decided to end life's innocent lives' punishment. Now here's where things get even more disturbing. Jason wasn't just confessing. He was describing how he killed them. In his words, he drowned each child individually, taking breaks between the murders to compose himself. Let me repeat that. He stopped after each killing, sat down, breathed, maybe even wiped his face, and then went back and did it again. Over and over and over. What kind of sick, twisted mental state lets you do that? By this point, the news was everywhere. Social media lit up. Father kills 3 kids in Round Lake Beach. The comments were what you'd expect. Pure shock, disbelief, and rage. Deborah? She was absolutely shattered. She'd just lost everything. Her babies were gone, and the man she once trusted to care for them was now sitting in the back of a police cruiser, admitting to every second of it. And as for Jason, he was booked, charged, and thrown into a holding cell. No bail, no sympathy, no chance in hell of getting out. The damage was done. The horror was unleashed. And the entire state of Illinois, watching in stunned silence as the justice system prepared to dig into one of its most haunting cases ever. So now we've got Jason Karels in custody, and this dude isn't playing games anymore, well, unless they're psychological. He's facing 9 counts of first-degree murder, and the evidence? It's not just stacked against him, it's sky high. We've got his full confession, the murder weapon, a bathtub, the handwritten note, dripping with rage, and the fact he fled the scene and led cops on a high-speed chase. Like, if this were a Netflix series, you'd be yelling at the screen. Why even bother with a trial? Just throw him in the dungeon and lose the key. But justice doesn't work that way. Not even for child murderers. Enter the lawyers. Jason pleads guilty but mentally ill. Pause. Let's talk about this plea for a second. It's not the same as pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. Nope. Guilty but mentally ill means, yes, I did it. Yes, I knew it was wrong, but also I'm a broken mess upstairs. It's basically his way of saying, hey, I was messed up in the head, but not too messed up to avoid prison. But here's the catch. The court didn't care. They saw the receipts. They saw the premeditation. They saw the note. They heard the calm, detailed confession. This was no heat-of-the-moment act. This was calculated, vindictive murder. And no mental health diagnosis was going to put a band-aid on that. In February 2024, the gavel drops. Jason Karels is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No plea deal. No leniency. No second chance. Judge George Strickland delivers the sentence, and you can feel the weight of it in the courtroom. Even the most seasoned court reporters look like they just aged 10 years. Jason shows no emotion. No tears. No visible remorse. Just sits there cold, empty, like a shadow in a hoodie. But while he's sitting in silence, Deborah finally gets to speak. And this is the moment where you feel every ounce of this story hit you like a freight train. She stands in front of the man who murdered her children and says, "You will never see the light of day again. You are a coward." You could hear a pin drop. The heartbreak in her voice, devastating, but the strength, unreal. She stood tall. For Bryant, the little big brother with a toothy grin. For Cassidy, the bubbly toddler who loved playing with her dolls. And for Gideon, the baby of the family, who barely got to see his second birthday. 3 lives, erased, because one man couldn't handle being left behind. And in that courtroom, he was finally left behind. For good. Life without parole. 3 consecutive life sentences. Jason Karels won't be playing video games, won't be seeing sunshine, and won't be hearing laughter ever again. And, honestly, good. Because monsters belong in cages. So, the monster's locked up, right? Case closed, justice served. But here's the harsh truth nobody likes to admit in true crime. The real damage comes after the gavel drops. Let's start with Deborah. Imagine waking up every day, knowing your kids were murdered by the man you once loved. That the last time you saw them, you handed them over to their father, trusting they'd be safe. And then you come back 3 days later and find silence. Not only did she lose her Babiesh, lost them in a way that no mother should ever have to imagine. Her grief became national news, her trauma, public record. And still, she stood in court, faced her children's killer, and spoke with strength. But strength doesn't erase suffering. And this kind of pain? It's like trying to breathe underwater. Friends say Deborah's been using her voice to raise awareness about mental health failures, child protection loopholes, and how domestic violence isn't always black eyes and screaming matches. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, creeping, and sometimes it ends in a bathtub. Then there's the community round Lake Beach, a place where this kind of thing just doesn't happen. Neighbors lit candles, strangers dropped off teddy bears and flowers on the front porch. A memorial grew outside the Karels' home, and the whole town was left with one gut-punching question. Could this have been prevented? And here's where the real frustration kicks in. Because there were signs. Jason's instability wasn't new. His mental health struggles weren't a secret. There were moments, plenty of them, when the system could have stepped in, but it didn't. There were no red flag laws triggered, no mental health intervention, no court restrictions on custody. Because on paper, Jason was just another dad going through a rough patch. And that's the problem. Too many family courts don't take psychological abuse seriously. They don't see control, manipulation, or emotional instability as real threats until it's too late. And when it is too late, kids like Bryant, Cassidy, and Gideon become statistics. But not this time. Deborah's working to change laws, advocate for family court reform, and put the spotlight on how shared custody can be deadly when one parent is emotionally unstable. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a warning shot to the entire nation. Mental illness matters. Domestic violence includes psychological threats. And family annihilators like Jason Karels didn't just snap. They plan, they wait, and they hit when no one's looking. This case lit a fire. News anchors, podcasts, YouTubers, everyone started talking. Custody rights, father's rights, women's safety, but more than anything, children's lives. Because 3 kids went to spend the weekend with dad and never came home. By now, we've walked through every chilling moment, the crime, the chase, the trial, and the fallout. But let's be crystal clear. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a failure, a preventable one. 3 beautiful children, Bryant, Cassidy, and Gideon, are gone. Not because of a freak accident, not because of a stranger, but because of their own father. A man who should have protected them, loved them, been their shelter. Instead, he became the storm. This wasn't about mental illness alone. This was about control, about revenge. Jason Karels didn't just snap calculated, waited, and then acted with ice-cold intent. He made sure their mother would be the one to find them. He wanted her to carry that image for the rest of her life. And yet, despite that unimaginable pain, Deborah stood up. She faced him in court. She didn't break. She used her voice for her kids, and for every other parent who's been gaslit, ignored, or failed by a system that doesn't always listen until it's too late. This is about more than just one case. It's about all the red flags we miss. All the custody decisions made without understanding real danger. All the kids who spend weekends with the wrong parent because no one thinks someone like Jason could go that far. But he did. So now, we don't just move on. We remember their names. Bryant Karels, age 5, the big brother with a brave heart. Cassidy Karels, age 3, sweet, joyful, full of light. Gideon Karels, age 2, too young to understand hate, too young to fight back. Say their names. Keep them alive in your memory. And if this case shook you, do something about it. Share this video. Let people hear what happened. Drop a comment if you've ever seen someone like Jason behind the mask controlling, dangerous but still trusted. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe. Not for shock value, but because the more we understand these crimes, the better chance we have of preventing the next one. This isn't about views, it's about visibility. So, the next time someone sees a parent unraveling, they'll remember Bryant, Cassidy, and Gideon, and they'll speak up. Because silence, that's what monsters count on.